I'm David Bowles. I'm a pharmacist, but I've been interested in clocks all my life. My father was before me, and I caught on and have been accumulating Irish clocks of interest all my life, and they have ended up here in Waterford in this wonderful museum.
Hello, my name is Coleman Curran, and I'm delighted to be associated with this joint venture with Waterford City Council. I've always been interested in clocks and watches and the history of them, the social history of the makers, the cabinet making, the engineering. So I think it's a great boost for Waterford City and indeed Ireland to have the Irish National Museum of Time located in Waterford, and we're very proud to be associated with it.
Absolutely, there'd be a very, very early, what they call a turret clock, which is a big, large mechanism. The very earliest clocks were like that. They didn't have a dial. They were in monasteries, and the most important thing in a monastery was that you had prayers X times a day, 4 times a day, whatever, every 4 hours. That was very important. So they used to use fan glasses to measure the time. That was very tedious. But then they developed this idea of having a big mechanical clock that would ring a bell, didn't have a dial, would ring a bell every 4 hours or every hour or whatever, and that sort of measured life in a monastery, and then it moved on from there. They developed outdoor dials for public buildings in about 1500s, 1600s, and one of the clocks here would be a clock made before the days of dials, before dials became common.
It is very difficult to source early Irish clocks in particular because they're very rare. For every 1,000 British clocks there might be one Irish clock, so it's very difficult to get them, and particularly the ones from the 18th century. So both of us have been collecting those clocks and looking out for those clocks for many, many years, and you know, to assemble a collection like this does take 30 or 40 years. You won't go out and do it in the morning, even if you've got 10 million euro, you won't be able to do it. So you do have to, you know, check auction houses around Europe and the United States. We've both purchased outside Ireland, Irish clocks outside Ireland. So yeah, it's a long journey to get here, a long journey. Yes, that's what's one of the motivating factors. The engineering did develop in the 16th, 17th and 18th centuries. It was fairly stable by the 19th century. But it's very interesting to see the trends and the way that the engineering developed. And we have a number of quite rare clocks inside in the museum, which are examples of very early engineering innovations. So yeah, they didn't just start making clocks and everything was...
For example, in the English section there are 2 what people call grandfather clocks, long case clocks. One of them is a superb example, would have been in a very, very wealthy person's house, very expensive, and beside it is a very humble clock, very basic, but would have been made for a much poorer family, but who wanted a clock. But even still, they were both made in the 18th century, 1700s. And even then, clocks were very expensive, and the average, we say, ordinary poor farmer in the west of Ireland would never have been able to afford one. So subsequently, we began to import clocks from the Black Forest in Germany, and these were much more affordable, much simpler, and we have a section where we display those. These are the sort of clocks that you might find in your grandmother's house, grandfather's house in the west of Ireland, a simple American shelf clock, much cheaper, but yet they went very well. So there's all levels of society represented, from the most statiest of homes with the finest stock in the collection, down to very humble clocks.
But most of the clocks in this museum would have been owned by wealthy people, and only wealthy people could buy them, because, you know, in 1700 a pocket watch was a bit like an Intel chip. It was really mysterious technology. People didn't know how they worked, and it was just, you know, very much like the cutting edge of computer technology now. So only wealthy people could afford them. Okay, we had hoped to open the museum in May of this year, but that didn't happen for obvious reasons. So we now hope to open either at the end of this month or early next month,
So
at the rate we're going. September, October, yeah. And it'll be a soft opening because obviously we can't invite a large crowd, but we'll open the doors and we'll just see who comes.